Wing Women Weekend Nashville! Woohoo! Our next Wing Women Weekend takes place in Nashville, Tennessee, January 17th to 20th, 2025. Are you a woman in the LGBTQIA+ community who is looking to make friends, relax, unwind, and have fun? You have a burning desire to be a part of the queer community, but you're too shy to go out on your own. If so, then this event is for you. Join your Wing Women hosts, Anne-Marie Zanzel and Tonda McKay, for some socializing, Southern barbecue, dancing at the Lipstick Lounge, one of America's last remaining lesbian bars, and much more. This is the perfect opportunity to step out of your comfort zone and make new queer friends, aka your Wing Women. Spaces are limited. Don't delay. Reserve your spot today. For more information and to sign up, visit www.wingwomenweekend.com. That's wingwomenweekend.com. Hey queer friends, are you ready to be inspired? Welcome to Season 5 of Coming Out and Beyond, a podcast that shares stories from the LGBTQIA+ community. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzel.
What does it mean to hide? It's a really interesting question, especially for those of us who are in the queer community. How does that affect us, and how does it affect the people around us? I have a really interesting guest today to introduce to you. Karen Solt is a retired U.S. Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer and the author of Hiding for My Life, Being Gay in the Navy. Karen served in the Navy as a gay sailor from 1984 to 2006, prior to and during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. After hiding her sexuality from the world for most of her life, she considers herself a combat ideologist and believes the way back to personal and global peace and freedom is for every human to come out from hiding and commit to living the truth of who they are. Karen holds a master's degree in psychology and counseling, is an emotional health coach, and currently resides in northern Arizona, where she and her sweet dog Kai take walks in the pines, drink lattes, and watch over her feisty mother. To learn more, please visit Karen's website at hideology.com. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Marie, thank you. It's great to be here.
I am so excited to hear your story today. I've learned a lot about the Navy from reading your book. But I would love for you to share with us. So, Karen, can you tell me your story? It's sorry, such a loaded question.
I know, because it's
people
like,
always,
okay.
People always look like deer in the headlights.
And like, I'm trying to find the condensed version in my head because it could fill the hour, I'm sure. So, as a young girl that grew up in northern Arizona, Prescott, Arizona, and I'm almost 60, so I was raised in the 70s mostly, and was a young girl that struggled with my gender more than anything. I was a tomboy. I was the first girl in my hometown to play Little League. I was the first girl in my hometown to wear a tux to my prom. But I didn't know at the time that I was gay. I just thought I was a tomboy and hated dresses and all the things, right? My parents owned a clothing store, which was like nice dress clothing, which just like, I was horrified. It was really not my thing, right? I wanted to wear Vans and t-shirts and jeans. 18 years old, in high school, I did have a boyfriend, great guy, still my friend. But I wasn't having the same kind of connection romantically with him that my friends were with their friends, right? But I just didn't know, there was no Ellen on TV. I didn't know anybody in my hometown that was gay. So I didn't even know it was a thing because there was no visibility, right? When I'm 18 years old, I get tricked into going into the Navy by a sneaky recruiter.
I have to ask you about that because when I read your book, you talk about how you signed the papers and didn't even realize what was going on. So how did that all happen? Because you took a bunch of tests, you went to the recruitment thing and everything like that. And then all of a sudden you signed the papers without realizing what you were getting into. Can you say more about that?
So, everybody took an ASVAB in high school. So that's
Mhm.
just like it was a standard thing. And I think in this hometown or my hometown, they still do that. And so that's the Armed Services like vocational aptitude battery.
Mhm.
And that's like gives the recruiters like your scores if they want you to enlist, whatever. I was a teenage alcoholic. I started drinking when I was about 9, 10 years old.
Mhm.
Grew up in an alcoholic home too. So,
Mhm.
I was kind of a hot mess. And,
Mhm.
the recruiter came to the high school. I was like barely graduating, bottom 10% of my class, like partying hard every day, ditching school, just wild child. The recruiter comes to school, he starts asking me questions because, I'm one that's not going to college, obviously, because there's just no use for me going to college. And he asked me, have you ever done drugs? And I say yes.
Mhm.
Um, and so he's like, I'm going to contact you in 6 months. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm out of there. 6 months later, I'm working at a
He
gas
does
station.
contact you. Yeah.
He does. He contacts me and then he says, let's go down to Phoenix and talk to some people. And so, that's 100 miles away from my home. There are no
Mhm.
cell phones. There's no way to contact anybody. I'm isolated and I'm alone with him, right? And he takes me to MEPS, which is where you enlist. That's
Mhm.
where I'm talking to people is where they're actually like moving me through the enlistment process. And I think slowly during the day, like I was like, huh, like, but I was also a teenage alcoholic that didn't have a lot of like
Skills.
agency. I
Yeah,
didn't have any
yeah,
agency.
like
I
you
was really
didn't.
naive.
Yeah.
Was a partier, right? And by the end of the day, I'm ushered onto this stage with a bunch of other young people, and they say, raise your right hand. Everybody raises their right hand, and I'm like, it's like groupthink, right? I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, I raise my right hand and I enlist. And um, today I would know that I could still get out of it. But back then, I thought because I signed on the dotted line that I was just screwed because I didn't have any recourse and I didn't know. Today, you could look up the internet and you could figure out how to probably get out of it.
Mhm.
Back
Mhm.
then, it was like I signed on the dotted line, I belonged to the government, and I went into boot camp. So
Mhm.
that's how I ended up in. I wrote a lot about that in the book.
Mhm.
Um, so I joined the Navy, and within my first year, I figure out that I'm gay. And
Mhm.
had a really tough time on my first ship. They were just integrating women. So I end up in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a young girl from Arizona, and it was a lot of culture shock. It was like the culture shock of the Navy, culture shock of just South Carolina as opposed to Arizona. Like I was pretty lost and had a really tough time initially.
Oh,
And
it sounded horrendous. I
yeah, it
mean,
was
like that whole part of the I did, of integrating women on ships. I
yeah,
mean, like unbeknownst to you, you sort of stumbled into the first wave of
I
this.
did.
And the
Yeah.
men sounded, what did you say? They were women belonged in the kitchen or in the bedroom?
That's
Yeah.
one guy said that to a friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the senior guys said that, he too, my friend who I met who, still my friend and also gay.
Hmm.
So I met her, she introduces me to her, like her people. And I'm like, oh, her people, these are my people.
These are my people. I get
These are,
that.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like this is
Yeah.
my, and so like I knew, and then I had my first girlfriend and like I fell into the community, but back then in the Navy, it was illegal to be gay in the Navy. And the whole time
Right.
I was in, it was, against the UCMJ, which is like the Navy's own law system,
Hmm.
judicial system. So in 1984, we were actually witch hunted by the Navy Criminal Investigative Service. And so they would try to catch us. They would stage people at gay bars. Um, they would try to get someone to befriend you, and then that person would turn on you. They really wouldn't be your friend. They just were trying to hunt us. And so we called it witch hunting. And if they
Hmm.
caught one person, they would bring that person in, they would interrogate that person, try to have that person turn on a bunch of us. And then,
Hmm.
the next thing you know, a whole bunch of people would be kicked out.
Hmm.
So, I learned really quickly how to adapt. And so during the day, I was a sailor. At nighttime, I had my underground gay family, and that was community, right? Like we had this
Hmm.
really beautiful lesbian community that I
Hmm.
fell into. And so after a while, like I fell in love again. I end up in Hawaii. I end up like getting sober. I end up my career like absolutely takes off. And but the whole time I'm like hiding.
Right.
And so when I have 11 years in, I make chief, and chief in the Navy is like the
That's a
goal.
pretty, yeah.
It's the goal. And in the Navy, when you make chief, you change uniforms, everybody calls you chief, like everything changes. Like
Mhm.
every enlisted sailor wants to be a chief. And that's E7. And I made that at 11 years.
Is
And I go,
that good, Karen, to make
yeah,
it in 11 years? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the average is 14, but I'm not positive about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, once I get sober, like my career, then, I'm doing really well. And I go into work that day, and that's when um, I have my mentor, um, he tells me that he's in love with me.
Hmm.
And because I'm hiding, because like I've worked with this guy for 3 years,
But he has no idea.
he has no idea that I'm gay. I don't know how he doesn't know I'm gay because other people knew that I was gay, but this is projection, right? He saw what he wanted to see.
Hmm.
And so what he saw in me was somebody that was in love with him. And what I was I respected the hell out of him, and I wanted to be,
Yeah. And
I
he was a
admired him.
mentor. Yeah, he was
Right.
a mentor. Yeah.
And so that experience ended up very tragically. And I'm not going to
Hmm.
give away what happened, but it was the worst thing probably that ever happened to me. And
Hmm.
um and that happened because I was hiding. And he was
Hmm.
also hiding, right?
Hmm.
But I served another 11 years, you know,
Hmm.
and had a great career, and had a partner for a really long time. And then I get out of the Navy in 2006. I've done 22 years, and I
Hmm.
think I'm going to be free. I told you I'm going to
Hmm.
take the whole hour on this. I think I'm going to be
Hmm.
free. And what happens is I quickly realize that I am even more afraid now because I don't have my uniform to hide underneath.
Hmm.
Feel very vulnerable and exposed, and I don't know. I still feel like I'm being hunted or um, judged, or I'm going to get attacked, or I just feel very exposed without my uniform. And that's when I start the journey of figuring this out.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and that really takes off 11 years afterwards. 2017, I've been out 11 years, when I call it my hiding bottom. And that's when I realized I think I'm out. I think I'm good. And I have this experience that shows me that I'm still really afraid. And
So I have a ton of questions.
I bet.
So you were also part of there during the Ask, Don't Tell, which was in
Yeah,
the Clinton administration, which was like at the end of the 90s, I think, or something
it
like
went
that.
from 94 to 2009 or 2011. So it
Did the
was
culture of the military change at that point in the sense? So just correct me if I'm wrong. It meant that you couldn't get kicked out for being gay
not
anymore.
true.
Okay.
Not true.
So tell me
So
about
it
that.
was don't ask, don't tell. They
Right.
couldn't ask anymore. So there was a question on your enlistment document and your security clearance document.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had homosexual tendencies, desire to have sex with this person of the same sex, blah, blah, blah. That was taken out of those documents. So they could no longer ask us. If I told somebody that I was gay, I was out. During Don't Ask, Don't Tell alone, 14,000 sailor or service members were kicked out during Don't Ask,
Okay.
Don't Tell. From
So it
the
didn't
from
get better. It didn't get better then.
Well, it was about a third less, I believe. So
Mm-hmm.
it got better, but if you had a homophobic commander, or like, you could still be really targeted and stereotyped and have like your life could be miserable to where you get kicked out. So,
But there was a lot of queer people in the Navy, and
oh
there's
yeah,
especially women,
still are.
still
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And and so was it one of those things where like it was like an open secret and everybody knew, and people just turned a blind eye to all of that? You know what I'm saying? Not about the individual, but the real fact is that there's a lot of gay people in the military.
I think that like I never personally got targeted.
Mm-hmm.
I had
You're
other
stealth,
issues. Say that again?
right? You're very stealth
I
then if you
was.
never
Yeah.
got targeted.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've always known how to adapt like to my world. I learned that as a child, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I knew how to like make things work for me. But I also, you know, did people know? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right. People knew, but did I say the words I'm gay? I said it one time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the
Mm-hmm.
day I made chief. And that was when my whole world blew up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then I
Mm-hmm.
get out of the Navy and it's like telling people I'm gay, like in my body, I feel like my
Mm-hmm.
world's gonna blow up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, people knew, but obviously some people didn't. Right.
Right.
Some
Right.
people, some people wanted to see you as because you know you can hide, like I can still hide. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even my, you know, I mean, I've had like, I mean, I can still hide. It's people, you know, unless I tell people, a lot of times people don't know that I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, I mean, I think some people present a lot more obviously than others.
Well, yeah, I talk about this a lot. People, some people have a glass closet, like you know, the boy. It's usually in a very effeminate boy or
Right,
a woman that is very butch or
right,
masculine of center, like that.
right,
You just like my wife. She's masculine of center. People know, like people always have
yeah,
assumed that she was gay,
right,
especially when she got, you know, she was wore the short hair and all that stuff when she got a little bit older.
yeah,
So yeah, there's people that have glass closets. They can't hide it, you know?
right,
Yeah.
right. And
But
yeah,
most gays are in the middle of the road. You can't tell
right.
unless somebody
Yeah.
tells you.
And that's why the don't ask, don't tell, you know, was it was a step in the right direction, but it was still really problematic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but you know, 114,000 people got separated from World War II to the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So, you know, it was this huge, you know, thing that we were always contending with. And
Mm-hmm.
if you made somebody mad, you know, like it was one of those things where you know, you tried to like make sure that you didn't make enemies,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you didn't want to be targeted. And but I think that like for me, I was really good at my job. And the
Mm-hmm.
people that I like the other lesbians that I, you know, went up the ranks with, you know, were exceptional at their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I think we were given maybe a little more leadway. Maybe people
Mm-hmm.
left us alone because of that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, in some ways in some ways I had lots of allies who I feel like protected me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there was always, you know, just like anywhere in society today, there's still homophobic, very homophobic people, right?
Yeah,
There's
right.
same there.
Did you I'm interviewing somebody on Tuesday. I'm doing an old gays episode to talk about like what's going on politically and how you get through it.
Yeah.
And he was in the military. He was in, I don't know if it was, I don't know what branch, but he was in the and he was married to a lesbian,
Mm,
and he's a gay man.
yeah.
And they had a marriage of convenience, you know, a marriage
Right.
of convenience so they could protect each other.
Right.
Did you see that
That's,
happen a lot?
oh, I mean, I don't know about a lot, but I saw it happen. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because you just say like, I have a husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people left you alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
were, because if you're treated single, and then if they were married together, they probably stayed together. And so they
Mm-hmm.
went to duty stations together, so they would stay co-located.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't married, you were considered single and they would just send you anywhere.
And that became very problematic for gay people with partners.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
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 Because
Yeah.
I had a partner and we were together for a couple of years. We were together totally for almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we were together for about 2.5 years when she got sent to the Middle East, to the middle of the Indian Ocean. And you know, we were both considered single, but we were both career sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us 3.5 years to find our way back to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when we did that, we found our way back to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And then we both took jobs in San Diego to stay together for the rest of our career, but we turned down really demanding career enhancing assignments to stay together. So
Mm-hmm.
we were able to stay together, but our careers took a hit,
Yeah.
right? So you know, I always say you had to sacrifice one of two things. You either sacrifice your career or your relationship. And
And
when we
that's
were
not
apart,
fair.
it wasn't fair. When we were apart for that 3.5 years, it was probably the best and the worst 3.5 years of my life career wise.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't willing to leave her again. Like, and you know, so both of us, we understood the stakes at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
Well,
was,
it was it, you know, there was a gift with being partnered with somebody who was on the same career track as you, because they could understand it in a much deeper level than somebody who was not like a civilian, who wasn't in the Navy or anything like that.
Yeah, the
So,
difference, I mean, a civilian, like my closest friend, her wife, civilian, and she could go with her. So if she
mhm,
transferred, she could go with her, but she was still considered single. And so like they didn't get dependent pay and they didn't get dependent benefits. And so, her wife wouldn't get the same, um, benefits and things at local commands that other spouses would get.
right.
And if she, like when she was stationed in Japan, her wife could go, they're married now, but she could go to Japan for like 3 months and then she'd have to leave again because
Mhm,
she couldn't stay there with her, so
mhm,
different, that we all had different things that we contended with. And in my book, I tried to write about like my unique journey, definitely,
mhm,
but I also try to write about the collective journey that we
mhm.
all contended with because every gay veteran is going to have their own story, and
And
none
that's
of
what I
them is
appreciated about your book. I mean, I know gay history, but I appreciated like how you talked about gay history and talked about Stonewall and all that things like that for somebody who may be reading this because they're really into the Navy and they didn't,
yeah.
what's it like for somebody who was queer in the Navy or something like that, or someone who's never had that experience. So I really appreciated that you touched on the history of the community and stuff like that, especially for those who don't know, you
Thank
know.
you.
So you
Yeah.
got out in 2006, you said?
Mhm. Mhm.
Long time. I mean, your
Almost
whole
20 years.
yeah, I mean, well, got that you got the retirement, right? Which is
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
Um, I have a client right now who is they joined late, like in their late 20s. They were like the oldest person and they're now like in their mid 40s and like I don't know if I can make it 20 years. They're going to because they just got
Yeah.
they're an officer.
It's
Um
worth it. It's
yeah,
worth it
it's
if you can stick it out. The
yeah,
benefits are
and
good.
that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And then the military does great things. They're, getting a master's degree.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're an officer. So I mean, it does great things. It sets you up for your future life
Yeah.
too, because
Yeah.
their degree will set them up for their future life. And
Yeah.
that,
I got
like
my
to
degree
me,
with my
there's
GI Bill.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said. My parents bought their first house. They got the very last GI mortgage from World War II in our hometown
Oh,
back in like 1964. They were like it was like one of the last ones that they were issuing for the veterans of World War II and stuff like that. So my parents got that. So there's a lot of good benefits with being. My nephew was in the um, uh, Navy for a long time, and he's a medic, and he's he gets all the benefits from that.
yeah.
He was a reserve, but he gets all the benefits, which is wonderful. There's a lot of positives about all this.
There are a lot of positives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved my career. Like if you,
Mhm.
when people ask me, they're like, why did you stay in the Navy? I'm like, I loved it.
Well, it took you a while. It took you a couple years to get really used to
Oh,
all of it and
yeah.
stuff
The
like that.
initial
But
part I did not love.
oh my God, it sounded awful.
It
Like
was pretty
I
rough.
don't think I could have done it honestly when I was a big, I was a big partier and stuff like that. I mean, I was a mess. And I don't think I could have done what you did, Karen. I really don't think I could have because I just like the discipline and all the things that you put up with and all the harassment you put up with and stuff like that. I don't know if like I could have done that because it was like you had to go through a lot and that was really an interesting part of the story as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, my options were limited. And
Mm-hmm,
so, and I also like, the first time I re-enlisted, like they sent me to the Caribbean for two
mm-hmm,
years, so,
mm-hmm,
it was a carrot that was dangled in front of me, but I didn't have anywhere else to go.
mm-hmm,
Like, I couldn't come back to my hometown. There was like, I found once I found gay people, it changed everything for me. And
mm-hmm,
so, like I figured out my way, but it took me a while. It was my first 4 years were, it was my whole career was a roller coaster ride. But I
mm-hmm.
don't think I really started to like love the Navy until I went to Hawaii. And I had, what, 6 years in at that time.
Mhm.
And then I
Well,
really started to fall in love with it.
well, and also too, you were 25. I mean, you
Yeah,
were becoming more of an adult by
yeah, a
then,
little bit. Yeah,
I mean, you joined, you were a kid. You were
I
just
was
an
18.
absolute kid. And also too, like a lot of kids, you were pretty much aimless. You were talking about
Yeah,
working in the gas station and all that stuff like that. And you're like, I'm not doing this for the rest of
yeah,
my life. I think, it was an unscrupulous recruiter, but it's what is it? There's pluses and minuses
yeah,
to that.
to everything.
He was definitely unscrupulous, but
He was, but
yeah.
also, I was on a road of drugs.
Well,
You know,
yeah. And
started
also,
drinking,
hmm
but
and you were in a very heteronormative life. You probably would have ended up pregnant and having a
oh
baby
God.
or something like that. So, 2006, you get out. I can only imagine what a shock to your system that was, because you had lived your life up to this point. I mean, you were told how to live your life and be beyond, I mean, like your work life. And like, who I'm sure because you didn't develop an identity of self before you joined the Navy.
Mhm.
I bet your first question out was like, who the hell am I?
I think I had this really weird like belief that I would revert back to the kid that I was, like the young hippie. I
Yeah.
thought like I probably have reverted more to her now.
Because she's a part
After,
of you too.
yeah, because like I had to find like the young, fierce, feisty part of me. Um, I don't know that I was ever like a really militant person. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, but the Navy gave me structure, told me when to be to work, what to do. Like I mean, it was like, and I had people that worked for me. I mean, because I made chief so young that I always had sailors working for me. I loved that part of it. Um, Getting out, like, I mean, I became a personal trainer was the first thing
Mm-hmm.
that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just wanted to wear sweats and hang out and like work out and not have a lot of responsibility. And that career, that initial career led me into understanding that all of my clients were hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would get a client, they would have these goals, they would start to make these goals, and then they would sabotage the goals. And I was like, oh, they really
Mm-hmm.
don't want that goal because that goal is actually keeping them in hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like what the way that they're living is hiding. And so that's when I started psychology and going, I went to and got my bachelor's and master's in psychology. And I just was really hungry to try to figure it out. But I thought I was trying to figure out the human condition. And I didn't realize that what I was really trying to figure out was my own trauma, my own shame, my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
had to go back and like do that
Mm-hmm.
because it was, I mean, I think for anybody getting out of the military, I don't care if you're gay or straight, it's a huge transition,
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
if you came in when you were a teenager.
Yes. Yeah, because you weren't formed yet.
No,
When they made and like I mean like when what we're like at 18, 19, 20. I mean,
we're
I still can
pliable.
we're still kids,
Yeah,
and the military likes them young because
right.
they're pliable, right?
And
So
strong. Yep,
and strong, physically strong.
right.
And they were like, so for you, they were really able to mold you to what they needed. And you had a skill set that, I mean, it sounds like you're an organizer and you were like in,
Yeah, I'm
you know,
Virgo.
you, yeah, you were the person, you probably love a spreadsheet,
I do love a spreadsheet. If it helps me, I absolutely love a spreadsheet.
So, I mean, you were the perfect person to do that type of work that they needed somebody to do, you
Yeah.
know. So you were hiding from yourself. What were you hiding?
Well, I think what happened for me was that that experience that happened to me when I had 11 years in, and he told me he was in love with me. Um, the outcome of that experience, I took it on
Mm-hmm.
and I blamed myself for the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and so, after that many years, there was a lot of internalized homophobia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was really afraid of um just being fully out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that. I mean, I have other ways of hiding. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have perfectionism and I'm a people
Mm-hmm.
pleaser and I'm a rescuer. And, I mean, I've got other ways of hiding that definitely have taken over my life, but the one that kept me paralyzed was was th- the thing that I felt like was my responsibility, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so what I was hiding from was I was hiding from healing that story.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started writing the book, I wasn't writing that book.
Mm-hmm.
Was writing, I had that experience, and then I could see the ways that we go into hiding and the ways that we come out. And
Mm-hmm.
and I was started to write that. It was like a self-help book.
Mm-hmm.
But I was
Mm-hmm.
spiritually bypassing what happened because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, for 25 years, I couldn't even speak it without really feeling like I was gonna die. Like it was intense. And
Mm-hmm.
um and so I was so afraid of um being asked questions about that story and not knowing what to say. And it was just I had to go back and I had to figure that out. I had to heal from it. I had to hand him back his part of it. I had to like take ownership of my part of it, but I had to go back and really face all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hiding from facing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're an ACOA and you write openly in your book about your dad being an alcoholic. And I'm an ACOA, which, if you don't know what that is, it's adult child of an alcoholic. And, perfectionism, people pleasing, rescuers, that's the people of the ACOA. And my ex-husband and I used to joke that hiring an ACOA is the best thing you can ever do because they'll work like dogs, because they're perfectionists and they want to please and they want to make people happy and stuff like that. How much does that play into your hideology?
I mean, I think when I talk to people about hiding and the ways, that we all hide and, in various ways. I mean, even like dimming my light or bullying is hiding. There's all these ways that we hide, body image issues, way we hide, right? Um, my hideology is discussing all of the ways that we hide. And what I really try to do is I try to normalize hiding because I think there are those of us like in the LGBTQ plus community who hide out of self-preservation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
hiding in some ways, not all of us, but we're not always safe, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I'm a people pleaser, it's not going to get me attacked or stabbed, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's not something that somebody's going to come after me because like a lot of people are people pleasers, right?
Right.
They want to take care of other people so that they're liked and not rejected. So I try to really normalize the whole hiding experience because what I'm trying to do in this really weird way is that I'm trying to show everybody that we're so much more alike than we are different. We all hide, we just hide for different reasons. And yeah, I mean I've done some ACA, I've done more AA.
Yeah. AA. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I've definitely more 12 step, but um yeah, I mean I think my rescuing started when I was 5, when I had, when my baby
Mm-hmm.
brother was born, my caretaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was in a family where, an alcoholic family where I didn't get probably the attention and love and support that I needed, right, as a child. And then I had a little brother, and by putting my attention on him, I found love. So
Mm-hmm.
then I grow up, and what I've learned is that if I put my attention on other people, I get love, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I've had to unravel all of my ways of hiding, even like my perfectionism. Like I didn't really understand that till I was in my master's program, and I got like an A minus, and I was like, oh, hell no, like what's up? And it was just really like I just didn't want to be seen. And
Right.
now it's like, here I
Well,
am.
I understand that because I got my master's degree in my 40s, and I remember I ended up doing it pass fail because you could do it pass fail I went to Yale Divinity School, and they offered pass fail, and at first I was taking classes, and then I said, why am I doing this to myself? I have 4 kids between the ages of 2 and 14, and I'm in a master's degree program. Just take it pass fail. No one's going to go and take a look at your grades when you're done.
Right.
I mean, if I was going to get a PhD, that would be a different story. But I was like, I'm just, and I was just talking to my colleague the other day about this, like letting go of perfectionism has been the greatest gift of
Yeah.
all. times, because someone who is a perfectionist also can't admit they're wrong, because if you admit that you're wrong, then it ends up making you then it makes you realize you're not perfect. So like being able to apologize, all those things like that. Once I let go of perfectionism, it was like such a great gift. Like now I have no problem. Like if I do something wrong, I will apologize and say I'm sorry. But it's like so much easier than trying to be perfect.
Right.
It is so much easier than trying to be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways that people hide? I mean, like it's very easy to understand the gay stuff and things like that, but what are some other ways people hide?
So like we just talked about, perfectionism is a big one, right? People pleasing, huge way of hiding. Dimming my light. So if I'm standing in somebody else's shadow, like if I'm putting somebody else like above me, so that they get the spotlight, so that I don't have to get the attention, because maybe at some point in my life, like an example is when I was a kid, I'm the middle child. My older brother, he got attention until I was born. And then he blamed me, I think, like, and subconsciously, but and so if I did something good, I got a lot of attention when I was really young. And then I would get punished by him, and so I learned to dim my light so that I didn't threaten him. So that's a way that we hide. And that's a big one. Bullying is hiding, right?
Explain that to me. What do you mean
So
by that?
so the bully is the most fearful person in the room, in my opinion, right? So what are they hiding from? What are they afraid of? Right? Afraid of showing their weakness, afraid of showing their insecurities. And so then what they do is they take that, instead of healing from that fear and insecurity, they get into action and they take it out on somebody else that's weaker than them. Right. And so, if I'm like if I'm going to find somebody that's weaker than me that I'm going to pick on, so that people will focus on that person, and then they don't focus on me anymore, because I'm now the strong one. That's how I see it. And I see this is a collective thing that's happening right now, right? Where, certain populations like the trans community, especially, like super scapegoats right now, right?
Right.
Being bullied. So that, and same thing, immigrants, right? Like the spotlight is being put on people who are, struggling, and, and it's people who are fearful, bullies, who are attacking people who are, you know, who are in struggle and just trying to live their damn lives.
Well, and also too, I see it as well as that in the LGBTQ community, the piece is like the weakest link, because it's children. And unfortunately, a lot of people in our community are transphobic. And so it's got that double whammy. So people who are bullies, I agree with you, people who are bullies will look at that and say, okay, where can we start in the queer community where we'll get the least pushback? And where they started is with the kids. They started with trans children, which is like, to me, blows my mind. And all the other, like I'm nervous about what is going to happen in the next couple of years. I'm really concerned about, how are we going to get through all of this? And, in your intro, you wrote about, like, if people could just be, it sounds like what I think you and I are saying the same thing, is that authenticity, to come out of hiding, no matter what it is. Like for you and I, it's our queerness, but for other people, it's a lot of other things. And also too, your queerness was just a part of it, and my queerness was just a part of it. There was other things that I was hiding from as well, and using perfectionism and people pleasing, and I was so codependent. Like,
my big one has been rescuing.
Yeah,
I will find a young brother in a heartbeat and try to take care of him, just reenact my, a baby brother kind of experience, and I always get burned. Like it's like, and I'm like, oh God, I did it again.
I know. I'll never forget. Yeah. I'll never forget when I was in Allen. So I went to Al-Anon. And you sound like you were a double winner. But I went to Al-Anon, and I remember them like I had this like epiphany moment, Karen, in which I was like, oh, just because I realize this about myself doesn't mean it's fixed.
Right.
Because we keep repeating sometimes the same
Yeah.
patterns. How do you get out of that? How do you get out of that same pattern? Like once you realize something about yourself, I believe that we need to give ourselves incredible self-kindness and compassion because we're
Yeah.
going to make those mistakes. And
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a practice, like it's like yoga or a martial arts or something where you're just trying to get better at something, you know.
Yeah. I think it's so I look at hiding in a way where like we go into hiding and we start this pattern, right? So um like I'm born perfect, I'm born loving myself, I'm born asking for my needs, like I get all of my needs met until I don't. And then at
Mm-hmm.
some point I need something and I get rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Or, or I giggle the wrong way and somebody tells me that I sound stupid. Or, like something happens where being myself is no longer okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into hiding. I find some way,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, like humor has been a big thing. Like I have ways of hiding, right? That's why I call myself a combat hideologist. I find
Mm-hmm.
ways to hide. Addiction was an early one for me. And then, like you just said, though, like at some point, you start to notice that that is creating more pain for you than it is ease, right?
Correct. Right,
And
right. I get
so that's the bottoming out on the hiding. And
that. Mm-hmm.
my opinion is that each form of hiding has its own bottom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Addiction is kind of an easy one because like I can stop drinking and then
Mm-hmm.
but then I have to figure out how to live life without booze, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can stop that pattern. Personal relationships is a whole nother story,
Right.
right?
Because
Because
there's two people involved.
I see somebody in need, I'm going to be their hero. I just want to come in, I want to fix things, I want to make them feel better, which is kind of bullshit because what I want is I want to make myself feel better
Right.
about their pain. I want to remove their pain so I'm not in pain about their pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really my own pain that I'm trying to heal, but it's tricky because I come out, it's an illusion thinking that I'm trying to help them. So I have
Mm-hmm.
to, I have to start seeing it.
Right. I
It's
remember that because like when I started working with women coming out later in life, it was only 2 years into my own, I was way too early.
yeah,
And what I realized is that so what happened is I was at a basketball game with my wife. My son was playing, and she wasn't my wife then; she's my girlfriend. And I had to connect to people. I'm a connector. I connect people all the time, and it was something that definitely didn't have to happen right then. He was playing basketball and stuff like that, and I'm like doing this, and what had happened just previously to that is I came out in a very small town and all of a sudden I was sort of a social pariah, you know? And so somebody that I used to be really friendly with, like just walked by me without saying hello. So I was upset. And
yeah. What
so,
an awareness.
yeah. And so I'm doing this and my wife said, oh, his name's Cole. I talk about him all the time. People know him. Cole just made a basket. And I was like, I looked up and all of a sudden, I realized, oh my God, I miss this
Yeah.
because because the pain of what I experienced
Yep.
put me into caregiving mode.
Yep. Because
And
that's your form of hiding.
right.
Yeah.
And then what happened? This was like, one of those moments where everything becomes crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happened is I said, oh shit, I've been missing my life
Yeah.
because I'm a caregiver and I became a professional caregiver by being a chaplain. I mean, like, I'm a caregiver and that's part of me, but it's not all of me, but it's also how I survived my childhood. And and I know that I started working with our later in life community because it was so fucking painful what
Yeah.
everything I was going through. And so I went to caregiving because I could take care of this community, just like what you just said.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to
Exactly.
escape my own pain by putting my focus on somebody else that I
Somebody
can take
else's
care of,
pain. Yeah, but
right? But so
right.
it's like I'm hiding from my own pain. And that's what's
Right.
happened. Like worldwide right now, everybody's hiding from their own pain,
I totally agree with you.
right? And
And
so, and different forms of hiding are happening. But the
right.
self-awareness, like in that moment, like that awareness in that moment, that's the key because if you can start to see in that moment, okay, I was really uncomfortable. And then the next thing I knew, I was dissociating. Dissociating
Right.
has been like my hardest way. Like that's the hardest one because like that's a skill I've had since I was a child,
Yeah,
right?
that's the ACOA skill. Yeah.
Right. But you don't know you're dissociating because like you just fall into dissociation, right? And so I had to start to notice when I was actually falling into dissociation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that, that's probably the last form of hiding that I've had to work really hard at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been since I wrote the book. Because
Mm-hmm.
like even writing the book, like, I go in and talk about it to my therapist and I just start dissociating. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm dissociating and having a full-on conversation with her for like 20 minutes. And then and then I come out of it and I go,
What did I just say?
yeah. And she's like, what just happened? And I said, the last thing I remember is this. And she's like, that was like 20 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, then she would start to like check in with me. She would start to see like, she'd watch me and she'd go, are you with me? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then like we started to pull myself back out of that. But, there's hiding is probably for most of us a very subconscious thing that happens.
It's
Right.
a protector. It's
It
a
is.
protector. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, Karen, most of the women that come out later in life are huge dissociators.
Yeah.
I've been it's so fun. Now I think about it, like my oldest used to yell at me a lot. Because like I would just disappear. Like
Yeah.
they'd be talking to me and they'd be going, Mom, 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 Mom. And they'd get really pissed.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, like it was after I came, during that whole time, the tumult of coming out, that I
Right.
realized that, oh, I just
So
dissociate. And so I
overwhelmed.
dissociate so much from myself that I don't like even, sexuality, all that stuff like that doesn't even occur to me. I mean, it did occur to me, but I always put like the first time I ever thought I was gay, I was like 19, but it was like, oh, I'm just 3 drinks away from a lesbian encounter, because I
Who
was
isn't?
always drunk. Yeah, I know. But I was always drunk when that happened. So I just like sort of wrote it off, but I also totally disassociated. And which is really interesting is that a lot of late in life lesbians marry men that are so emotionally unavailable
Yeah.
because and I always like was wondering about that. And what I realized is that we partner with these men because we are so dissociated from
Because we're so
ourselves.
emotionally
Yeah,
unavailable. Yeah.
unavailable to
Right.
ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's why we partner with those guys,
Because if we're emotionally available to ourselves, we're not going to pick people who are not emotionally available. We're just not going to
Right.
do it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this is fascinating. I love this discussion. Unfortunately, I have to wrap it up because we're already almost at our hour mark. So I just want to tell the audience right now that Karen's book is really good. I have not read the whole thing. I'm about a third of the way through, and she is a good writer. She's a very good writer, very descriptive. If you are curious about what it's like to be in the military, she hits the nail on the head. Like I feel like I understand like like how a ship works more than ever, like how small they are and all those things like that. And I really highly recommend this book. I think it's a great book. So please go out and get it and read it. And so did you have a Karen coming out song, Karen?
So the only song I really remember from back then that like represented the gay community is I Am What I Am by
Mm.
Gloria Gaynor. It was like that was kind of like our theme song. And then Melissa Etheridge's like first album, but that was after I came out. But
Mhm.
we played the hell out of Melissa Etheridge in the beginning.
Well, yeah, and and yeah, and also too, she was like the first person, like one of the first people to come out like publicly, wasn't
Totally.
she? Her
Yeah.
and Katie Lang and the Indigo
Mhm.
Girls, and even like people before them, like Diana Davidson and stuff like that. That but Melissa Etheridge is like it's
She's
like
kind of she's a representative, yeah, of us.
yeah,
But
she's
I Am What I Am was like at the time that I came out, like I went to gay bars a couple of times until I figured out like it wasn't really safe for me to be there. But
right.
that song was like so big for us back then.
Mm-hmm,
You know?
mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
how about a book or a movie that changed your life?
Well, the book that changed my life was the one that I wrote. is the truth. It set me free.
Yeah.
But that it did change my life. Like it freed me. But I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the like the attention span for it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't. But books, one of the books that really made a huge difference to me was Educated,
Mm-hmm.
by Tara Westover, and mainly because it was just such a honest, deep story. So that one made a big difference to me. Four Agreements, Untamed, Glennon Doyle. I love Glennon Doyle's writings. I like anything that is honest, because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's how I write. Like I feel like I put my heart and soul into what I write, whether it's my book or the newsletters, like the Substack stuff that I do now. I'm honest when I write. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I really value that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how would you describe your life today?
Um, so I'm doing some traveling and going and speaking about the book. I just got back from Oregon and Washington. And so I'm really trying to spread the message and kind of give hope, especially to the young queer community,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's a lot of fear right
Yeah.
now in our
Yeah.
community. And so I'm doing that. And then, I'm home with my dog, in
Mm-hmm.
the woods. It's quiet. I'm pretty isolated. So I have a nice neighbor. I have a nice neighborhood. I have nice neighbors, but it's as far as gay, it's still a really not a very gay friendly
Well,
town.
yeah, you wrote in the book that you didn't want to go when you were considering whether to sign up again, for your second 4 years or
Yeah.
whatever, you were like, where am I going to go? I mean, like Prescott, Arizona is not a gay.
Yeah.
Like it's, yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
I think, there are definitely, a handful of gay people here, probably a bigger group than I know, but I would think that most people that are gay are already partnered up. And
mm-hmm,
and I just, like I've been partnered up with like my work and my book and the stuff that I'm doing.
mm-hmm,
And I really like that. And I had another dog, Paco, who died a year ago. And so,
mm-hmm,
I moved back here after my dad died. I'm here to support my mom. I really doubt I'll stay here. I mean, it's
mm-hmm,
beautiful and it's quiet and it's in the woods, but it's isolating.
mm-hmm. You need community.
I need community.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And I think that's really important right now,
Yeah.
especially
And I
because,
was just on the road and around so much community that it was like really hard expanding. And then I
yeah,
come back home and I'm like the only lesbian around again is like it feels really like polarized. Like I feel like
yeah.
there's a huge difference right now in my life.
Well, I hope that when this chapter of your life is, completed, you will be able to, or maybe someone will show up on your doorstep because, well, actually, no, lesbians don't fall through the ceiling. We have a friend that doesn't, she wants a partner, but she doesn't really do anything for it. And we're like, honey, a lesbian's not going to fall through the ceiling.
Yeah.
On your lap.
Yeah.
But you've written this book, you might get somebody who reads this book and be like, I'm going to meet this woman. So Karen, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And it is a wonderful book. Good job.
Thank
Really.
you. What a great conversation. I appreciate you.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzel. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzel.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzel.com.